Okay. So magandang hapon po sa ating lahat. Good afternoon, and we're going to study about how you should. How you should means studying the foundation of our faith. So ang topic natin ngayon matagpuan sa Galatians 3:10. So ang sinasabi po sa Galatians 3:10 sa ating Christian Bible is sumpain ang sinumang sumusunod sa kautusan. Ano po bang kautusan ang tinutukoy ni Pablo? Sapagkat sinabi niya doon na sumpain ang sinumang sumutupad sa kautusan. At balikan natin ang sinasabi dito. Ang salvation in the ancient, according to the rabbinical perspective, in the Mishnah, Sanhedrin chapter 10 verse 1, by the rabbis, all Israelites have a share in the world to come. It is said, your people shall all be righteous. They shall inherit the land forever, the branch of my planting, the works of my hands, that I may be glorified. Ito po ay mababasa sa Mishnah. Okay? Therefore, according to the Jewish or rabbinical teaching, salvation or covenant membership was based upon identification as a Jew. So, sa Israel po, kapag pinag-usapan yung salvation, meaning covenant membership, or pagpasok mo doon sa covenant ng Diyos. Sapagkat it was written in the Torah that only Israel will be saved because Adonai gave the covenant to Israel. And since Gentiles have no covenant with God, they have no separate covenant, the only reason for them to be saved is to become part of God's covenant. But in the rabbinical teaching, salvation was based on or entering into God's covenant means by becoming Jewish. Another is maintaining a life of obedience to the Torah or not being cut off from one's people. So from the opponent's point, one becomes proselyte by submitting to the rabbinical ritual, or one maintains the status of proselyte by obeying the Torah. So ang ibig sabihin po, dahil nga ang mga Gentile ay hindi ipinanganak na Jew, the only way they can become part of God's covenant is to become Jewish. So this is the issue that Paul was addressing in the epistle to the Galatians, is that covenant membership or salvation is not by becoming Jewish. Now, how does one get into God's covenant? Specifically, how do Gentile believers become covenant members in order to gain your salvation? And in the apostle point of view, it is through Yeshua. That is faith in Yeshua, not by becoming. But the prevailing teaching of the rabbis in Paul's day was that the covenant membership was reserved exclusively to those who have Jewish status. And Jewish status was reckoned on the basis of ethnicity. So if one was Jewish by lineage, then covenant membership was automatic. That means all the Jews were covenant members by birth. Now, for Gentiles, in order for the Gentiles to enter into God's covenant, they have given the Jewish status through ritual of becoming proselyte or becoming Jewish. So the sages had developed a ritual by which a Gentile could be reckoned as having Jewish status. And this was the ritual of becoming proselyte. So it addresses people who believe that salvation can be obtained upon obedience to the Torah. Sapagkat ang paniwala nila noon, ang salvation ay sa pagsunod sa Torah or pag-obey sa Torah. So what is the so-called proselyte ritual? So it is a ceremony in which a Gentile were given a Jewish status cannot be found in the Bible. So we can say this proselyte ritual was an innovation of the rabbi. So in the rabbinic ceremony of the proselyte ritual, It involves four things. Number one, willingness of the Gentile to accept the whole Torah, both the written and the oral. Second, receiving circumcision for the males. And third is offering a sacrifice. And number four is undergoing water immersion. They call it mikvah. And according to the doctrines of mikvah, when he comes up from the water of the mikvah, he is deemed to be an Israelite in all respect. Meaning, isa na siyang born again Jew. Pag umahon sa tubig, isa nang born again Jew. So, in the first century, the term circumcision was used to denote those who have Jewish status. Dahil yan ang tawag din ay rabbinical word or rabbinical teaching. Kapag sinabing circumcision, ay ang ibig sabihin nun ay those who have acquired a Jewish status. So Paul speaks of the circumcision as meaning those who claim to be Jewish status. Ay tinatawag niya yung circumcision group, no? So this circumcision in Galatians can mean trusting in one's Jewish status as the basis for covenant membership. Hindi po yun ang turo ni Pablo sa mga taga-Galatia. Kasi si Pablo, siya ang nag-establish ng Galatian community. Ngunit may dumating doon na tinatawag niya ng circumcision group, meaning those yung naka-acquired sila ng tinatawag na Jewish status, na sinasabi niyang, kung hindi kayo magiging Jewish, hindi kayo maliligtas. So, Apostle Paul wrote this epistle in order to address that issue. Okay? So, if one trusts in his Jewish status as the basis for covenant membership, then he is relying upon the flesh. According to Paul, kapag nagtitiwala ka na ang pagpasok mo doon sa covenant membership ay sa pagiging Jewish, ibig sabihin, that comes from the flesh. So for Gentiles to believe that gaining Jewish status would give them the covenant membership was contrary to the gospel, according to Paul. If they were trusting in a man-made ritual to give them right standing before God, they would be lost, according to Paul. So because God's only accepts the atonement of Yeshua as the basis for enduring covenant status. So sa paniniwala ni Apostle Pablo, hindi sa Jewish status, pagiging Jewish status, ang pagpasok sa covenant, kung hindi yung atonement work ni Yeshua. So the Galatians were dealing with teachers who were attempting to influence the Gentile believers, probably Jewish believers or proselytes, who were convinced that only people with Jewish status were genuine covenant members. So, ang mga naroon sa Galatia, hindi sila dumaan sa tinatawag na proselyte ritual. Sila lamang ay bunga ng pagtuturo ni Pablo, pero hindi sila i-convert ni Pablo to become Jewish. Naging believer sila ni Yeshua sa teaching ni Pablo, but no ritual conversion. Kaya si Pablo, ina-address ang issue ito dahil nagugulo yung mga naroon. But because according to Apostle Paul, kung magtitiwala tayo doon sa tinatawag na Jewish status, you were denying that Yeshua was the Messiah. And they were teaching that Gentiles believers needed to become proselyte in order to be fully accepted as covenant member within Israel. So, ito ay yung iniiwasan ni Pablo. Kaya kailangan niyang i-address ito because ang tinawag din niya silang influencers. So these influencers were attempting to undermine the teaching of Apostle Paul. And they were saying that Paul did not have authority to teach the Gentiles were covenant members by faith alone. And they were attempting to adhere to the rabbinic view of covenant membership while still confessing Yeshua as Messiah. So dalawa, hindi lamang nila kinukonfess na si Yeshua ay Messiah, at the same time, magpapakonvert pa sila. So, ina-address ni Pablo, no? So, for Paul, covenant membership was based entirely upon work of Yeshua, hindi work natin as Redeemer, no? Anything else was, according to Paul, was another gospel. So, how the influencers thought about salvation in Galatia na ina-address ni Paul. So, tinuturo nila ang tinatawag doon na works of the law. What is works of the law? And that is gaining Jewish status. Ito yung tinatawag na man-made law. Pag sinunod mo yung tinatawag na Jewish status, ay magiging member ka ng covenant, then you will become righteous in the eyes of God, then you will obey the Torah. Yun ang turo ng mga influencers. Pero ang turo ni Pablo, ano? Ang turo ni Pablo, para maging bahagi tayo ng covenant, ay faith in Messiah, then you will receive in the forgiveness of sin, and they will become righteous in the eyes of God, then you will receive covenant membership status. And then, your faith in Messiah Yeshua produces obedience to the Torah. So, kung mapapansin nyo, baligtad sa tinuturo ng mga influencers. Ang tinuturo ng mga influencers ay kailangan mo munang magpa-convert bilang isang Jew at manalig ka na ikaw ay isa ng Jewish at member ka na ng covenant at saka pa lang tatanggapin si Yeshua. So, dalawa. Samantalang ang turo ni Pablo, just follow Yeshua, believe in Yeshua that He is the Messiah, and then you will obtain covenant membership. And then yung faith mo kay Yeshua ang i-inspire sa iyo para sumunod ka sa Torah. So, mababasa natin yan sa Galatians 1. Paul affirms in Galatians chapter 1 that the gospel had been given to the Galatians was the truth as he had received it directly from God. So Paul has the authority to teach about that salvation is through Yeshua. That meaning gaining membership in the covenant or entering in membership in God's covenant is through Yeshua. Those who were attempting to add to the gospel message he had taught them were actually teaching another gospel, which was not the gospel at all. Paul was well acquainted with the rabbinic teaching, and he knew that it was not the gospel that was found in the Scripture. So alam naman natin si Apostle Pablo na isang rabbi, no? Before he became a follower of Yeshua, yun ang kanya ding doktrina, kaya alam na alam niya yan. Ngayon, nung matagpuan niya ang Panginoon, sabi niya, hindi ito. So Paul in Galatians chapter 2 had gone to Jerusalem and received affirmation from the leaders there that the gospel he was preaching was the true gospel. So hindi lamang siya tinawag talaga ng Panginoon, kundi kinukonfirm ng mga ibang apostles na si Pablo ay tunay na nangangaral ng mabuting balita tungkol sa Panginoon. And one of these is Titus. And Titus was the test case because he did not need to be circumcised, that means Titus did not follow the proselyte conversion in order to become a member of God's covenant. And another is Peter. Peter compromised his position by refusing to eat with the believing Gentiles. So, yan po yung mga binabanggit dito sa Galatians chapter 2. Kaya sabi niya, you foolish Galatians, who was bewitched you, before whose eyes Yeshua, the Messiah, was publicly portrayed as crucified? These are only things I want to find out from you. Did you receive the Spirit by the works of the law, or by hearing by faith? Are you so foolish? Having begun with the Spirit, are you now being perfected by the flesh? Did you suffer so many things in vain? If indeed it was in vain, so then does he who provides with you the Spirit and works miracle among you, do it by works of the law or by hearing it by faith? So, in verse 1 to 5, according to Apostle Paul, the presence of the Spirit is a proof that God had accepted the Galatian Gentiles. You know, hindi ko nga pala nasabi, itong Galatia ay mga Gentile. Hindi ito Jewish community, lahat sila Gentile. So, ang sasabi ni Pablo rito, sa verse 1 to 5, he is contrasting the works of the law and hearing by faith. Meaning, kayo ba ay tumanggap ng Espiritu ng Diyos sa pamamagitan ng pagiging Jewish or hearing by faith in Yeshua? Hearing by faith means it should be understood in the Hebrew sense of obeying at ano naman ang ibig sabihin ng works of the law? Tumanggap ba kayo, mga taga-Galatians, ng Spirit ng Panginoon, ng pagiging Jewish? No, hindi. Sapagkat hindi naman sila ikinonvert ni Pablo. Kaya ang sinabi ni Pablo is itong verse 6 to 9 na illustration na si Abraham hindi naman ikinonvert at si Abraham hindi naman naging Jewish. Bakit si Abraham tumanggap ng Spirit ng Diyos? Let's read 6 to 9. Even so Abraham believed God, and it was reckoned to him as righteousness. Therefore he is sure that it is those who are faith who are the sons of Abraham. The Scriptures, foreseeing that God would justify the Gentiles by faith, preached the gospel beforehand to Abraham, saying, all the nations will be blessed in you. So those who have faith are blessed with Abraham, the believer. So ang unang sinasabi ni Pablo dito, si Abraham, sa Genesis 15, verse 6, si Abraham was declared righteous in the eyes of God, not by obeying the works of the law. Meaning, hindi naman siya nagpa-convert, but he was declared righteous in the eyes of God by faith. Okay? Sa pamamagitan ng pananalig, na-declare siya ng righteous without any conversion. Yan ang point ni Pablo. So, Abraham's faith was in the promise of God, and a promise that rested upon the coming works of the Messiah. Since the promise was to Abraham and to his seed, sabi niya, yun ang siya sabi, and believing into his seed. So Abraham was declared righteous in the eyes of God. So Paul reasons that the descendants of Abraham are those who participate in the same kind of faith he had. So the gospel was preached to Abraham, according to Galatians 3:8. Since the Gentiles were to be blessed in Abraham, they could do so only on the basis of faith. So this is the essence of the gospel, and this proved that ethnicity, meaning becoming Jewish, was not the basis for blessing. So, minimaintain ni Apostol Pablo na ang isang believer, para makapasok sa covenant, hindi mo na kailangang maging proselyte. Kaya dito sa Galatians chapter 3 verse 10 to 4, sinasabi dito, for as many are of the words or of the works of the law are under curse. It is written, cursed is everyone who does not abide all things written in the book of the Torah to perform them. So ang sinasabi ni Pablo dito, sumpain ang sinumang nananangan sa pagsunod sa kautusan. Sapagkat ayon sa kasulatan, sumpain ang sinumang hindi nakakasunod sa kautusan. So ibig sabihin, walang maliligtas sa pagsunod sa kautusan lamang. So ibig sabihin, kung pagsunod sa kautusan lamang, walang salvation kung wala si Yeshua. So ibig sabihin, kung wala ang Messiah, kahit nasa loob ka ng covenant, it's useless, according to Apostle Paul. So, ang kailangan, nandun ka sa loob ng covenant, sinusunod mo ang covenant, it's because to Yeshua. Yun ang napakahalaga. So, in verse 11, now, that no one is justified by the Torah before God is evident for the righteous man shall live by faith. However, the Torah is not of faith, or on the contrary, he who practices them shall live by them. Messiah, Yeshua, redeemed us from the curse of the Torah, having become a curse for us. For it is written, cursed is everyone who hung on the tree. Verse 14, in order that in Messiah, Yeshua, the blessing of Abraham might come to the Gentiles, so that we could receive the promise of the Spirit through faith. So ano siya sabi ni Pablo dito? Ano ba yung works of the law? Sabi ni Pablo, those who rely on the work of the law are under curse. So, okay. Ngayon, anong ibig sabihin nito yung tawag ng works of the law? Ang sinasabi nga natin na works of the law, yung man-made law. Ang nagtitiwala dito sa man-made law, at ano yung man-made law? Yun nga, yung pressure sa kanya na kailangan nila magpa-convert. Sabi ni Pablo, hindi ito yung tinatawag na law of Moses, kundi ito yung man-made law. No? Yung nililiwanag natin dito. At anong ibig sabihin po nito? Sa Galatians 3:10, ang tinutukoy po dito ay matatagpuan sa Dead Sea Scrolls. Sa Dead Sea Scrolls, sa the very exact phrase, works of the law, is used as, babasahin ko po, there are some of the pronouncements concerning the Torah of God, specifically some concerning works of the Torah that we have determined. All of them concerning and the purity of the sanctuary, it will be reckoned to you as righteousness, and that you have done what is right and good before Him, to your own credit. So in the covenant society, they have determined the exact rules of conduct that were required in order to become member of their society. Okay? Dahil binabanggit natin yung sa tinatawag na Torah Scrolls o sa Dead Sea Scrolls. Sa Dead Sea Scrolls, ang definition nila ng tinatawag na works of the law, yung tinatawag na rules of conduct within the community. So, ibig sabihin, ano yung rules of conduct? Meaning, yung man-made law in their community. Yan ang tinatawag dyan ay works of the law. So, the works of the law or works of the Torah were those things that gave a person his status as a member of the group. Meaning, like in the covenant community, you become a member of that community if you follow all the rules. Yung mga rules na need to follow in order to become a member of God's community. So, yun na nga po, ang ibig sabihin niyan ay man-made law. At yun lamang righteous member na nakakasunod doon sa tinatawag na man-made law, ilang ang tinatawag nilang righteous. So, Paul uses the phrase works of the law in the same as the Qumran society used the phrase. So, to denote there is specific requirements of conduct for membership in their society. So, ano yun? Hindi siya God's law. Siya ay man-made law. Ang sabi ni Paul, sumpain ang sino mang nagtitiwala sa man-made law. At kung yun ang aariin mo na iyong entry point sa membership sa God's covenant, sumpain ka, sabi ni Pablo. Because it's true faith in Messiah, Yeshua. So, in the same way, the influencers in Galatians were teaching the Gentile believers that they had to do works of the law in order to be given full membership in the covenant of God. So, ang sinasabi ng mga influencers na dumating sa Galatia, kung bakit nagugulo sila, bagaman sila believer ni Yeshua, nagsasabat, nag-aaral ng Torah, nire-require pa sila ng mga ito na sumunod doon siya tawag ng works of the law, meaning they need to be converted as Jewish. At ito nga po ay yung ceremony of becoming a proselyte. So, for the influencers, the works of the Torah mean becoming a proselyte according to the rabbinic ceremony. Ang tawag po dito sa Greek ay yung works of the law ay ergonomos. Pag sinabing ergonomos, yung man-made law. Okay? Works of the law. So when Paul asked whether the Galatians received the Spirit by the works of the law or by hearing by faith, he was emphasizing that the Galatian believers received the Spirit without becoming proselytes or without doing the works of the law, tumanggap sila ng Spirit ng Diyos. So, kaya sabi niya, relying on the works of the law, you will be under curse. Relying upon one's ethnic status as the basis for your covenant membership would result in final condemnation. You will be cursed, sabi ni Pablo. Sumpain, sabi sa Tagalog, sumpain ang sino mang nananangan sa pagsunod sa kautusan. Anong kautusan? Kautusan ng tao. Hindi yung kautusan ng Diyos, hindi yung sumunod sa Sabat, hindi yung sumunod sa Torah. Iliwanag yun po natin. So the Torah cannot justify or give right or standing before God. And the Torah does not bring faith, but rather faith brings the ability to obey the Torah as God intends. So ang sinasabi ni Pablo dito ay, mababasa natin yan sa Leviticus 18:5, na kailangan talaga sumunod tayo, at yung pagsunod natin hindi on the basis ng ating salvation, kundi ang basis ng ating membership, kung bakit sinusunod natin to ay dahil kay Yeshua. So the Torah is not of faith. Sabi niya, the Torah is not of faith. Anong ibig sabihin nito? It means that the Torah does not produce salvation. Hindi tayo maliligtas kung sa Torah lang. Hindi. Ang sabi ni Pablo, you need Yeshua. Rather, salvation or faith brings obedience to the Torah. Sapagkat alam naman natin, hindi naman talaga sumusunod sila. Ngayon, makakasunod ka lamang sa Torah kung mayroon kang faith sa Messiah. Because the Messiah will inspire you to obey the Torah. So, kaya sa Galatians 3:11, babasahin ko, but that no man is justified by the law in the sight of God. It is evident the just shall live by faith. Anong ibig sabihin? The just shall live by faith. Meaning the Torah does not produce salvation. Meaning, kung ang salvation ay ang pagsunod sa Torah, paano kung hindi mo masunod? Ay di, hindi ka na masisave. So, ang sabi ni Pablo, ang salvation natin ay kay Yeshua. Pagpasok mo sa covenant, si Yeshua, at yun ang mag-inspire sa iyo para sumunod. So, without Yeshua, meaning faith alone, or Torah alone, without Yeshua is nothing. Without Yeshua. So, Torah does not produce salvation, or rather salvation or faith bring obedience to the Torah. And those who were justified shall live by the ways of the Torah. Another is verse 12. And the law is not of faith, but the man that do it shall live in them. Anong ibig sabihin? The Torah is not of faith. Torah is not faith means both Torah and faith does not contradicting to each other. Rather, it complements to each other. That means faith brings ability to obey the Torah as God instructs. Kung meron kang faith sa Messiah, then that faith in Messiah will inspire you to obey the Torah. So it's a covenant distinct from the promise of covenant. So it establishes the condition under which the term of the promise could be maintained. So ano po ang ibig sabihin dito ni Pablo? Na the Torah is not of faith. Magkaiba talaga. Ang faith in the Messiah is different from the Torah because the Messiah, through the Messiah, you will enter into the covenant membership. And that faith in the Messiah will inspire you to obey the Torah. So, maliwanag na po ba sa atin ang ibig sabihin ng ano ba ang kautusan na tinatawag ni Pablo na sumpain ang sinumang sumusunod sa kautusan? Curse everyone to those who rely observing the law. So, ang maliwanag o liliwanagin natin na ang kautusan tinutukoy ni Pablo dito ay hindi yung kautusan ni Moses, kundi yung man-made law. Okay? So, hindi po. Kaya tayo ay sumusunod sa Sabat, sa Torah, dahil ang ayaw lang naman ni Pablo ay yung nasusundin natin yung na ang basis ng ating salvation ay yung man-made law, yung works of the law. Basta ang basis ng ating salvation is faith in Messiah, and through Him, we become part of God's covenant. Salamat po.